You often hear what happened to ordinary souls, or even chosen souls, the good souls that are incarnated here on earth. Many religions have a lot of theories regarding what happens to the souls after we die. However, no religion, nobody ever talks about the evil souls. What happens to these souls? What happens to people who have committed the worst crimes in history? Do they go to hell, just like ordinary bad people, according to some religions? Do they get reincarnated to another life, worse than this? For example, what happens to the Carlos Brown soul, the man who murdered Irina Zaruchka on the train by stabbing her multiple times? To answer this question, we must first understand why we are here, why we are all here in this planet, in this lifetime, at this moment of time, in this galaxy, in this universe. This world that we're living in, it's a bad place. And I'm not saying this from a pessimistic point of view, it's facts. Unfortunately, evil has dominated this planet. There are multiple other planets in other dimensions that are better than Earth, and a few that are worse than Earth. Yes, believe it or not, there are planets, there are places, lifetimes, even worse than this planet. But this is below average. Earth is below average. And we are all here because, let's say it this way, we screwed up. We weren't the best people in our previous lives. And I know this is kind of hard to hear for some people. We used to be great in ancient times, in the Mycenaean times, archaic in the classic times, where we first lived. This is our first lifetimes, we remember. We were great, most of us. However, back then, life was hard. People died at a young age. Illnesses, war, murders, genocides. There were multiple causes. And people died at 30, 40, 50 years old. There were few that lived a long life. And most people, most souls, even the ordinary ones, the greater ones, every soul, didn't get to fulfill their purpose in that lifetime. And they were given more lifetimes after that to fulfill that purpose. But again, things weren't any better in the coming years after the archaic times. Years were darker. Religions emerged, separating people, cultivating hate in the hearts of people, and more souls screwed up. Even the best souls, even the greater souls, even the Carthaginian souls. And now the world is starting to become brighter again. And this is where we're going. Earth is going to these classic times, like the ancient Greece, ancient Egypt, and ancient Rome. These times where democracy thrived, where people were free, careless, calm, and peaceful. That's why we have this mass awakening for most people nowadays, because we start to remember. And it's important to understand that not every soul has the same purpose. Some souls are great, some souls are Carthaginian, and they choose this planet, they choose this lifetime for a greater purpose, to help this planet ascend. Some other souls are ordinary souls. Imagine them as fillers, placeholders, just to fill in the world. And there's nothing wrong with that. Don't underestimate these souls either, because they're here to fulfill their own purpose, which is to live an ordinary life, to have a 9 to 5 job, to have an ordinary life, do nothing special. That's their purpose, because they didn't get to live like that years ago. They were genocided back then. They want to live an ordinary life because they didn't get to do that in their previous lifetimes. So sometimes ordinary life is what many people want, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some other souls come here with an opportunity to do better. Some evil souls get some opportunity to do better, but most of the time they don't. They screw up in another lifetime again. And what happens to these evil souls? Keep in mind that not every soul gets to choose where they get reincarnated. Because some of you may be wondering, why did I get to choose this planet where evil dominates for the last centuries? Hopefully, this starts to change, as we said. But why did I want to put myself through that? There are different reasons. First of all, it's according to your purpose. The higher the soul, the more choices it gets. Some souls get to choose between two options. Other souls have no option at all. And some souls have multiple choices. And yet, due to their greater purpose, they don't choose the best option for them. Imagine it like windows, literally, like you're looking at a screen and you see windows, you see your life, you see some highlights of that life before you get to choose where you will get incarnated. And some souls are sent here solely to suffer as a punishment or with an opportunity to thrive through this punishment and suffering and trauma. So, what happens to these evil souls? Where do they go? These souls get reincarnated over and over again for eternity, and they never get to choose again. As soon as the soul leaves the body, there's an understanding that comes, knowledge, wisdom. It can see everything from above, like it can understand at the same time how everyone is thinking, what's in everyone's mind. They can see it not from their own perspective, like they have been doing their whole lives, but from a greater consciousness, and they realize how they screwed up, what they did good or wrong. And this is not only with evil souls, this happens with all souls. Every soul gets a clearer picture, a great inner knowing, because it becomes one with the oneness, with the one, with a higher consciousness. So it understands. Another important element is people who leave behind. It's how we, other people who are left behind, who are still alive in this planet, how we talk about a deceased one. This is very important. That's why we say you shouldn't say anything negative about someone who has passed away. Because if you say something good about someone who has passed away, or send wishes, or say rest in peace, or I wish your soul rests, and wish them good things, and talk high about them, their soul rises higher. It's really important the aftertaste of that soul, especially in the first days that this soul leaves the body, when people talk highly about that soul, about that person, who they were when they lived. If they say good things about that person, their soul rests in peace. It becomes joyful, happier, and it gets lifted more and more up. It reaches the Elysium fields and they get more opportunities, more choices. Probably, if it was an excellent soul, it won't get reincarnated again and it will get to live with the one forever in the eternal consciousness. However, if people talk badly about that person, for example, someone who murdered someone in a brutal, inhuman, and unfathomable way, imagine, even if one person talks negatively about them, their soul sinks deeper into Hades. Hades absorbs their soul, and the Nemesis, the goddess of justice, implies punishment upon them. Nemesis doesn't let anyone get away. You might think that some people don't get punished for what they do in this lifetime. That's totally untrue. Nemesis sees everything, and she always intervenes before or after this lifetime. And imagine in these severe cases of very evil souls, like we described earlier, the whole world, millions of people, and it's not about the talking negatively about them, it's the vibration. It's the feeling, like the example I told you in the beginning of the video with the Carlos Brown who murdered Irina Zaruchka on the train in Charlotte. Millions of people felt hatred feelings for this person, for this man, horrible feelings, and wished him the worst for a good reason, of course. And imagine this soul. It's going to be brutally suffered every time the vibration of all these people as a collective consciousness touches the soul. The suffering is really undescribable because we imagine suffering in the physical form when we feel pain or any type of discomfort in our body, but the soul suffering, and again, it's something higher than this world that we can't fathom with our own emotions and our own senses. It's the opposite of that freedom and happiness and joy and light for the good souls, for the virtuous souls, that again we can't describe it because we feel happiness in boxes here in this world. So we can't fathom it. It's the same with suffering. The suffering is unfathomable, and evil souls get to suffer everywhere, anywhere, in every dimension, in every lifetime. They never escape this cycle. And the worst part is that they know. They know because in this lifetime, guess what? Even these evil souls define themselves as victims. They always saw themselves as victims of the government, of someone else, of some higher power. They would even justify their actions, their horrible actions. But when the soul leaves this world, they get the clarity they needed. They see everything from the higher consciousness perspective, and that itself is a huge suffering. Cathosian souls get to coexist with other souls, with ordinary souls, with evil souls, and with souls that have other purpose, another higher purpose. And that's why life seems to be so hard in this life, in this planet. It's the coexistence with other souls that may have different purposes than yours. So if you want to move forward, it's important to find your own path, your own purpose, what your own soul craves. What's the contract you signed before you came here?